You're wasting money. You just don't see it. That's not an accusation. That's not a judgment. That's just the truth. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know it. You've had that moment. You check your bank account at the end of the month and think, where did it all go? You didn't buy anything huge. You didn't go on a shopping spree. You didn't make some massive financial mistake. You just lived your life, and somehow the money is gone. It's one of the most disorienting feelings in modern life. Because you're working, you're earning. You're not being reckless, but the numbers just don't add up. And the worst part? You can't even point to the thing that did it. There's no villain in this story, no single purchase you can look at and say, that's what ruined me. It's more like a slow leak, invisible, silent, constant. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because the big purchases, you notice those. You feel those. When you buy a new laptop, or book a flight, or sign a lease, your brain registers it. There's a decision made, a moment of awareness. But what about the small stuff? The stuff that costs $3 or $7 or $12? The stuff you barely even think about? That's where the real money goes, not in one dramatic moment, but in 1,000 tiny ones that you never even registered as decisions. Think about the last week. Not the whole month, just the last 7 days. How many times did you buy something without really thinking about it? A coffee here, a snack there, something you added to your cart at 11 at night because you were bored and your phone was in your hand. A subscription that renewed and you got the notification and just swiped it away? Did you even count those? Did you even remember them 5 minutes later? Probably not. And that's the whole problem. We live in a world that has been engineered, deliberately strategically, by very smart people with a lot of data, to make spending feel like nothing. Tap to pay, one-click checkout, auto-renew, saved card details, express delivery. Every single one of those features exists not to make your life easier, though. That's how they're sold. They exist to remove the moment of hesitation, to eliminate the friction between I want this and I bought this. Because companies know that the longer you pause, the less likely you are to spend. So they've made it so you never pause at all. And you've been living inside that system for so long that you don't even feel it anymore. It's just normal. It's just how buying things works now. But normal doesn't mean neutral. Normal doesn't mean free. Every tap, every swipe, every auto-renew is costing you real money. Money that is leaving your account quietly, without ceremony, without you noticing, and without you getting anything meaningful in return most of the time. That's what invisible money loss looks like. Not a dramatic heist, not a terrible decision, just 1,000 small exits adding up to something that would genuinely change your life if it stayed. So let's slow down and actually look at why this happens. Because it's not a willpower problem. It's not that you're bad with money or you don't care or you're irresponsible. The truth is actually more interesting than that, and more forgiving. The reason you don't notice your money disappearing comes down to 3 specific things that are happening in your brain and in your environment at the same time. The first one is that small purchases feel harmless. And this isn't irrational. It's actually a very reasonable way for your brain to work. When you're looking at a $5 purchase, your threat detection system doesn't fire. $5 is nothing, right? It's a fraction of your daily budget. It's less than a bus ticket in some cities. It doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a minor life convenience. And so your brain handles it the same way it handles deciding which sock to put on first, automatically, without resource, without memory. But here's the thing about small purchases. They stack. $5 a day is $150 a month. $150 a month is $1,800 a year. $1,800, that's a flight somewhere beautiful. That's 3 months of an emergency fund. That's a course that could change your career. That's real money, doing real things for real you. But because it arrived in your life $5 at a time, it never felt like a choice. It just felt like living. The second reason you don't notice is that digital payments make money feel invisible. And this is one of the most well-documented psychological effects in consumer behavior. It's called payment decoupling, and it means exactly what it sounds like. When you physically hand someone cash, you feel it. There's a tangible loss, your wallet gets lighter, you watch the bills leave your hand, your brain processes that as a real transaction with real cost. But when you tap your phone or click a button, there's nothing. No weight, no physical sensation, no visible reduction. The number on your screen changes slightly, but you're not looking at that right now. You're looking at the product you just bought. The payment is decoupled from the experience of spending, and your brain treats it differently because of that. Studies have found that people consistently spend more and spend more easily when using digital payment methods compared to cash. Not because they're being reckless, just because the psychological weight of the transaction is simply lower. You're not feeling the money leave, you're just pressing a button. And pressing buttons doesn't feel expensive. The third reason is the most powerful one. Habits run on autopilot. Your brain is a prediction machine. It is constantly trying to identify patterns and automate them, because automation saves energy. When you do something repeatedly in the same context, your brain starts to do it without asking you. You wake up in the morning, your brain says, coffee shop. You finish work in the evening, your brain says, delivery app. You lie in bed at night, your brain says phone, scroll, maybe buy something. These aren't decisions anymore. They're programs running in the background. And programs don't feel like choices. They feel like instincts. And this is the scary part. Once a spending habit is automated, it almost completely bypasses your conscious judgment. You don't ask yourself, do I need this? Do I want this? Is this worth it? You just do it. The way you brush your teeth, the way you check your phone when you sit down. Automatic, invisible, effortless, and expensive. Now let's get specific. Because talking about invisible spending in the abstract is one thing, but actually seeing where your money goes is something else entirely. So let's walk through the four main categories where money quietly disappears from most people's lives. And let's be honest about each one. Subscriptions. This one has become almost a cultural joke at this point, but the joke is actually on us because we keep doing it. The average person thinks they have about 3 or 4 subscriptions. The average person actually has somewhere between 12 and 17, depending on which research you look at. Streaming services, and you probably have more than one. Music, cloud storage, news, apps, games, gym, meal planning, a VPN, maybe an audiobook service you signed up for during a free trial 2 years ago and never canceled because you forgot it existed until just now reading this. And here's the thing about subscription culture. It was designed to be forgotten. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a business model. The free trial exists to get you in when the barrier is zero, and then the auto-renew exists to keep you in when the pain of leaving requires an action. Most people will pay for months or even years of a service they barely use, simply because canceling requires logging in, finding the cancellation option, navigating through retention screens designed to make you second-guess yourself, and then finally, confirming. That process takes 5 to 10 minutes and a certain amount of friction, and most people never get around to it. So the money just keeps leaving. Add up all your subscriptions right now, not the big ones you're aware of. All of them. Check your bank statement or your email for receipts. Go back 3 months. I almost guarantee you will find at least one thing that surprises you. Probably more. Delivery apps. Oh, delivery apps. The single most elegant trap in the history of consumer spending. Because they're genuinely useful. They genuinely save time. They genuinely reduce the friction of feeding yourself when you're tired and it's late and cooking feels like climbing a mountain. I'm not going to tell you that delivery apps are evil, because they're not. But I am going to tell you what they actually cost. The average delivery app order is somewhere between 30 and 50% more expensive than the menu price at the restaurant. There's the delivery fee, the service fee, the small order fee sometimes, the tip, which, by the way, the guilt around tipping on delivery apps is a whole separate psychological mechanism designed to increase your average order value. And then the markup that many restaurants add to their delivery menu specifically because they know you're paying those fees anyway, and your price sensitivity is lower when you're hungry and convenient. One delivery order that you think cost $20 probably actually cost you $30, $2 or $35. And if you're doing that 3 or 4 times a week, you're looking at somewhere between $300 and $500 a month. Just in food delivery. Do the math on that annually. It's staggering. Small daily spending, coffee, snacks, little purchases throughout the day. This is the classic latte factor argument. And I know it's been made so many times that it almost feels cliche at this point. But it's made so many times because it's real. Not because a cup of coffee will ruin you. It won't. But because the coffee isn't the point. The coffee is a symbol for all the small, routine, unexamined purchases that you make out of habit, without ever questioning whether they're adding value to your life. The gas station snack you grab every time you fill up. The vending machine at work because it's there and you're bored, not because you're hungry. The extra item you add to your online grocery order because it's only a few dollars and you're already paying for delivery. The phone case you bought because your current one is fine, but you saw this new one and it was only $15. Individually, none of these matter. Collectively, they represent a significant portion of your monthly spending, and almost none of them bring any lasting satisfaction. They're the financial equivalent of empty calories. And then there's impulse online shopping, the 21st century's most democratized form of financial self-sabotage. You know exactly how this goes. It's late, you're lying in bed, you're not even that bored, you're just kind of restless, and your phone is in your hand. Because your phone is always in your hand. You open one app, Maybe it's a shopping app, maybe it's social media, and you click on an ad, maybe it's just a browser, and you start browsing for fun. And then you see something. It's not something you needed. You weren't looking for it, but now that you see it, the logic arrives. It's on sale, you could probably use it eventually. It's only $30. It would be good to have. And so you buy it, without a list, without a plan, without asking yourself whether you actually want this thing, or whether you just want the feeling of pressing the buy button. And that feeling, that little hit of satisfaction when you complete the purchase, that's the whole mechanism. That's what you're actually buying. Not the product, the feeling. And it passes so quickly that by the time the product arrives, half the time you barely even remember ordering it. So why does this keep happening? This is where it gets really interesting. Because the answer lives in your brain chemistry, not in your character. Let's talk about dopamine. Dopamine is your brain's anticipation molecule. It's often described as the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. It's more like the wanting chemical. Dopamine doesn't fire when you receive a reward. It fires when you expect one. It's the feeling you get not when you eat the food, but when you smell it cooking. Not when you open the package, but when you press the order button and the confirmation screen appears. Every small purchase triggers a tiny dopamine loop. You see something you want, dopamine rises in anticipation, you buy it, there's a small peak of satisfaction, and then it drops. The item arrives and it's fine, maybe even good. But the dopamine is gone because the anticipation is gone. So your brain, which is always looking for the next dopamine hit, starts scanning for the next thing to want. The loop starts again, and again, and again. This is why impulse shopping feels different from intentional shopping. When you plan to buy something, when you research it, wait for it, save for it, the dopamine is distributed over time and the satisfaction tends to last longer. When you impulse buy, the dopamine is compressed into a few seconds of anticipation, and then it's gone. You're left with the object and a vague sense of emptiness, and your brain is already looking for the next thing. Delivery apps have mastered this loop completely. The app interface, the order tracking, the little notification that says your food is 2 minutes away, every single one of those touchpoints is a dopamine trigger. You're getting multiple hits per order. The ordering experience is engineered to feel better than it has any reason to feel. And then when the food arrives and it's fine but not transcendent, you're a little bit let down without quite knowing why. And so you'll order again next week. The loop resets. Now add present bias to this. Present bias is one of the most well-documented cognitive tendencies in all of behavioral economics. It's the tendency to value immediate rewards much more highly than future rewards, even when the math says the future reward is clearly better. It's why you'll choose $10 now over $15 in a week. It's why you tell yourself you'll start saving next month. It's why the future version of you always gets handed the consequences of the present version of you's decisions. When you're making a spending decision, the pleasure of buying exists right now, in this moment, vivid and real. The cost of that purchase, less money next month, a smaller savings account, a deferred goal, exists in the future, abstract and distant. Your brain weighs these two things and predictably, reliably, repeatedly weights the present pleasure far too heavily relative to the future cost. This isn't stupidity. This is biology. This is a cognitive system that was designed for an environment where the future was genuinely uncertain and immediate rewards were worth grabbing. But in a modern economy, it makes you consistently act against your own long-term interests. And then there's habit automation, which we talked about earlier. But it's worth going deeper here because this is the mechanism that links everything else together. Habits form through a three-step loop that neuroscientists call the habit loop. There's a cue, which is a trigger in your environment or internal state. There's a routine, which is the behavior itself. And there's a reward, which is what your brain gets out of it. Once this loop is established, the cue alone is enough to start the routine automatically, even without a conscious decision. Your cue might be opening a delivery app just because you're tired after work, or opening a shopping app because you're bored, or reaching for your card because you're standing in a checkout line and there are snacks right there. The behavior runs because the loop is established, not because you consciously chose to spend money in that moment. And here's the most important thing about habits. They don't disappear. You can't delete a habit. You can only replace it or interrupt the loop before the routine fires, which is exactly what we're going to talk about. But first, let me show you what all of this looks like in real life, because I think seeing it in a concrete scenario is going to make it click in a way that theory doesn't. Meet Alex. Alex is 26, works a full-time job, makes a decent salary, not amazing, not bad. Enough that Alex shouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck, and yet every month without fail, Alex ends up in the last week of the month with basically nothing, wondering where it went and making vague promises to do better next month. Here's what Alex's Monday looked like last week, and I want you to read this slowly. Alex wakes up, Slightly tired from the weekend, checks phone before getting out of bed. Habit, fully automatic, no decision made. Sees an ad for a hoodie while scrolling. Pauses. It's $40 and it's nice. Doesn't buy it, but opens the browser and adds it to a cart. Forgets to close the tab. On the way to work, stops at the coffee shop. Large latte, $7. It's fine. It's Monday. Alex needs it. Doesn't think about it. This has happened every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 2 years. Lunchtime. Alex meant to bring food. Forgot. Opens a delivery app. The restaurant costs $12 for the food, but with delivery fee, service charge, and tip, it comes to $23. Alex notices this, briefly, feels a small twinge of annoyance, accepts it anyway, and moves on. After work, Alex is tired, doesn't want to cook, opens the delivery app again. Another $25 to $30 disappears. Alex thinks, I'll meal prep this weekend. Alex does not meal prep this weekend. Alex has thought this same thought 11 Mondays in a row. Before bed, scrolling Instagram, sees a targeted ad for a product, clicks it, it's a supplement. $30. Alex has been meaning to focus on wellness lately. Clicks buy, doesn't read the subscription checkbox at the bottom. It will ship every month automatically. Alex will not notice for 4 months. That was one day. One ordinary Monday. Between coffee, delivery again, and the late night purchase, Alex spent approximately $85 to $90. That's not including the hoodie, which Alex went back and bought on Wednesday because it was still in the cart and the page said, limited stock. That's $2,200 a month minimum, just from habits that didn't feel like spending. That's $14,400 a year that Alex is spending in ways Alex could not name if asked. Here's another one. This one is going to feel familiar in a different way. Jamie is 29, smart, intentional person, decided last year to get serious about subscriptions and canceled a bunch of things. Felt really good about it. Is currently paying for Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus because of a promotion that became permanent, Spotify, an iCloud storage plan, a YouTube Premium family plan that started when Jamie had roommates, a meditation app renewed in January as a New Year's resolution, a language learning app that Jamie opens once every 6 weeks, a cloud backup service, a news subscription, a software subscription for a creative project Jamie paused 3 months ago, and a gym membership for a gym Jamie hasn't visited since February. Jamie thinks they have about 4 subscriptions and feels good about how much they've cut down. The actual number is 11. The actual monthly cost is approximately $147. The actual annual cost is $1,764. Jamie's bank account shows the charges coming out on different days throughout the month. A few dollars here, $12 there, $15,908. And none of them are big enough to feel alarming. But the total is the cost of a weekend trip to a European city. It's a month and a half of groceries. It's a significant amount of money going towards services Jamie is either barely using or not using at all. This isn't carelessness. This is what subscription stacking looks like when it's spread across 12 months of automatic renewals. You don't feel it because you never pay it all at once. But it's real. And it's yours. Now, here is the insight that I need you to hear, because this is the part that actually changes things. You don't have a big spending problem. You have an awareness problem. Read that again. Because this distinction matters more than almost anything else in personal finance, and it's the one that nobody talks about clearly enough. A big spending problem would mean you're buying things that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars without thinking. It would mean massive financial decisions made recklessly. And if that's you, that's a different conversation. But for most people who feel like money just disappears, who can't explain their bank statement, who earn enough but never seem to have enough, the issue isn't the size of any single purchase. The issue is that you have lost awareness of where your money is going in real time. Awareness is the foundation of everything in personal finance. It's not budgets, it's not investing strategies, it's not compound interest. It's awareness. Because you cannot make better decisions about something you cannot see. You cannot change behavior you're not aware of. You cannot control a system you've never observed. First, you have to see clearly. Everything else follows from that. And the good news, genuinely good news, is that awareness is one of the easiest things to develop. You don't need special skills. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need to be a different kind of person. You just need to slow down and start looking at what's already there. So here's how you fix this. Not with some complicated system that you'll set up once and abandon, but with a simple, layered approach that works with your psychology instead of against it. The first thing is an awareness system. Before you worry about saving more or spending less, you need to know exactly where you're currently starting from. This means doing one thing: reviewing the last 60 days of your bank and card statements and writing down Actually writing down, not just scrolling past, everything you spent money on. Put it into rough categories: food, subscriptions, transport, clothing, entertainment, random online. You're not judging yet. You're not making decisions yet. You're just looking. You're introducing awareness where there was none. Most people who do this exercise are genuinely shocked. Not because any single thing is shocking, but because the total of all the non-shocking things is. When you can see all of it in one place, laid out plainly, the pattern becomes visible in a way it never is when transactions are scattered across days and weeks in different accounts. This is the moment things start to shift. Not because you've changed anything yet, because you've seen it. The second tool is friction. This one is counterintuitive but incredibly effective. And it works precisely because it targets the real problem, which is not that you make bad decisions, but that spending requires no decision at all. Remove your saved card details from at least 3 of the apps or websites where you spend most impulsively. I know that sounds small. I know it sounds annoying, but here's what happens psychologically when you remove saved cards. The moment between wanting and buying suddenly contains a step. You have to get up, or open your wallet, or type 16 digits plus an expiry date plus a security code. That step takes 30 seconds. But in those 30 seconds, something happens. The impulse cools slightly. The dopamine fades just enough for your frontal cortex, the part of your brain that thinks about the future, to get a word in. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes you decide not to buy the thing. You're not eliminating purchases, you're creating a pause. And that pause is where awareness lives. The same principle applies to delivery apps. Delete them from your home screen, put them in a folder, 2 swipes deep. This doesn't stop you from using them, but it creates the tiniest bit of friction that gives your brain time to ask, am I actually hungry enough to do this, or am I just tired and bored and it's a habit? Third is the spending pause rule. This one is simple and beautiful. For any non-essential purchase over $30, you wait 24 hours before completing it. Set yourself a rule. See something you want? Put it in your cart or a notes app and come back tomorrow. If you still want it tomorrow and you can genuinely afford it, buy it with full awareness. But in an enormous percentage of cases, you will come back tomorrow and the feeling will be gone. The impulse has passed. The dopamine peak has faded, and the $37 thing you were ready to buy last night now seems like a perfectly skippable thing this morning. This single rule, consistently applied, can save people hundreds of dollars a month because it doesn't require you to never buy things. It just requires you to buy them on a slight delay. And that delay is all your future self needs to weigh in. Fourth is the weekly review. Pick one day per week. Sunday works well for most people, or whichever day feels like a reset for you, and spend 10 minutes reviewing what you spent that week. Not to punish yourself, not to calculate some complex budget variance, just to look, to see, to bring the invisible into the visible for 10 minutes once a week. When you do this consistently, something powerful happens. Your spending during the week starts to change because you know you're going to look at it on Sunday. The review creates a light accountability loop with yourself. You start making slightly different decisions in the moment, not because you're being disciplined, but because you're aware that you'll see this in a few days and you want to feel okay about what you see. This is the awareness loop in action, and it's incredibly low effort for an incredibly high return. Now let's make this concrete. Let's talk about what you actually do today, right now, not hypothetically at some future date when you have more time and more energy and more motivation. Because the version of you that waits for the perfect moment never does anything. The version of you that does something small and imperfect right now actually starts moving. Today, do 3 things. Just 3. First, open your most recent bank statement. Don't analyze it yet. Just open it and scroll through it. Actually, look at the numbers. The act of looking is itself the beginning of awareness. That's all. Just look. Second, make a list of every subscription you're paying for. Check your email for receipts if you're not sure. Go back 90 days. Write them all down. Put the monthly cost next to each one. Then mark each one with one of 3 labels: use regularly, use occasionally, can't remember the last time, any subscription in that third category, any one. Cancel it tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. Because tomorrow you'll forget and it'll auto-renew again in 3 weeks, and you'll do this exercise all over again. Third, remove your saved card details from one app. Just one. The one where you spend most impulsively, the one where you make purchases at midnight that you barely remember in the morning. Take your card out of that app today. That's it. One small act of friction that will probably save you $50 or $100 in the next month without requiring any willpower at all. That's your today list. 3 things. 15 to 20 minutes total. And if you do those three things, you have already done more to change your financial situation than all the vague intentions you've had for the past 6 months. Over this week, go a little further. After you've looked at your bank statement, actually categorize your last 30 days of spending. You can use a spreadsheet, an app, a piece of paper. Medium doesn't matter, clarity does. Sort everything into food at home, food out, or delivery, subscriptions, transport, clothing, entertainment, impulse, or miscellaneous. Then add up each category. Just add it up. Don't judge the numbers, just know them. Then ask yourself one question for each category. Is this amount aligned with what I actually want my life to look like? Not with what you think you should want. Not with what some finance guru says is the right percentage. With what you actually want. Because some categories will surprise you in a good way. You're spending on things that genuinely matter and bring value. And some will surprise you in a harder way. You're spending significant money on things that aren't making your life better in any lasting way. Both of those insights are valuable. You're not trying to eliminate spending, you're trying to make spending intentional. There's a massive difference. In the coming month, introduce the weekly review. Put it in your calendar, the same time every week, 10 minutes. Make it a ritual, not a chore. Some people like to do it with a cup of coffee on Sunday morning. Some people do it Friday evening as a way of closing the week. Find what works for you and anchor it to something that already exists in your routine. That's how habits form. You attach new behaviors to old ones and practice the 24-hour rule consistently. Every time you feel the pull to buy something non-essential, note it somewhere and let it sit. You'll be amazed how many things you don't buy. And you'll also be amazed how good it feels when you do buy something after waiting, because now it's a real decision made with real awareness that your whole self agreed to. That's a completely different experience than an impulse purchase. It feels cleaner, it feels better, it feels like you. Now, I want to talk about the mindset piece, because this whole conversation could feel depressing if it lands wrong. Like you've been doing everything wrong. Like money has been escaping through holes in your pockets, and you didn't even know. And if that's how you're feeling right now, I need you to hear something. Your money isn't disappearing because you're weak or undisciplined or bad at life. It's disappearing because you're living in an environment that was specifically constructed to make it disappear by very sophisticated systems run by very well-funded companies. Your cognitive biases, present bias, habit automation, dopamine loops aren't personality flaws. They're features of being human, and they're being exploited at scale. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. And the moment you have awareness, the power shifts. Because once you can see the system, you can work with it or around it. Once you know your triggers, late nights, boredom, tiredness, social pressure, sales language, you can design your environment to interrupt them before they fire. Once you know where your money is actually going, you can make real choices about whether that's where you want it to go. This isn't about deprivation. It's not about never ordering delivery or never buying something on impulse or living like an ascetic. It's about being a conscious participant in your own financial life instead of a passenger. It's about your money moving where you choose for it to move, not where friction-free design and dopamine loops happen to direct it. Money is a form of attention. Where it goes is a reflection of what you're paying attention to. Right now, for most people, money is going toward things they're not even noticing, which means it's going toward things they're not actually valuing. And the simple, powerful act of paying attention changes that. Not perfectly, not overnight, but meaningfully and more than you might expect. Imagine a version of you 1 year from now who ran this experiment, who spent 3 months just tracking and observing without major changes, who then started making small adjustments, canceled a few subscriptions, removed a card from one app, waited 24 hours before buying things on impulse, who started a Sunday 10-minute review and actually kept it up, who didn't go on some extreme budget or cut out all the things that bring joy but just became conscious, just started seeing clearly. That version of you probably has $300 to $800 more per month than current you, because that's the range that most people find when they actually do this work. Not from sacrificing anything meaningful, just from eliminating the genuinely invisible spending. $300 to $800 a month. That's $4,000 to $10,000 a year. That didn't require a raise, didn't require a side hustle, didn't require any dramatic lifestyle change. Just awareness. What would you do with an extra $4,000 a year? Not hypothetically, not in a vague future person way. What would you actually do? Would you start an emergency fund that would let you sleep at night? Would you pay down debt that's been living rent-free in your anxiety for years? Would you invest it and let compound interest start doing work for you? Would you take a trip somewhere that's been on your list? Would you give yourself breathing room so that money stress is no longer the low-level hum running under every other part of your life? All of that is available to you. Not from earning more, though that matters too, but from seeing clearly what's already there. So here's where I want to leave you. You are not bad with money. You are not hopeless. You are not the kind of person who can't change this. Those are stories you may have told yourself, and they are not true. What is true is that you have been operating without full information. You've been playing a game without seeing the whole board. And that's not a character flaw. That's just a gap in awareness that is entirely fixable. The money isn't gone, or rather, some of it is, but the pattern that took it is still running. And you can interrupt that pattern starting today, starting with 3 small actions and 10 minutes of honest looking, starting with the decision to see your financial life clearly, maybe for the first time. That decision right there is the most valuable thing you can do. Not a budget, not an investment strategy, not a side hustle. The decision to look clearly and then act on what you see. Because here's the thing about awareness. Once you have it, you can't give it back. Once you've seen where the money goes, you can't unsee it. And that's a good thing. That slightly uncomfortable feeling of looking clearly at your spending, that's your future self starting to get a seat at the table. That's the version of you who has savings and options and breathing room, beginning to have some input in the decisions of today. Don't waste that. Don't let this be another video you watched and found interesting and then forgot. Do the 3 things. Today, open the statement, list the subscriptions, remove one saved card. That's it. That's the whole ask. Everything else follows from there. Your financial life isn't a mystery. It's a system, and you can understand it, shape it, and ultimately make it work for the life you actually want. You just have to look.
When you're finished watching, simply swipe to close the video.